Yeah, so welcome everyone. So, in this first video, um, well, not technically the first video, but more of as a soul of first video. So, yeah, people used to say that we should begin all the good things with the name of the God. So, I thought, like, why not just begin the first video with the name of the God? So, in this video, I'll be talking about like God. And no, I will not be covering any religions, hopefully. But I will just be sharing like my views, like what I think, how humans like perceive something like God, like an omnipresence being, like how it all started. So, of course, it's very much like nothing factual at all. It's just like my mind thinking, because my mind has a lot of thinking to do because it is very free. So, yeah, I used to think like humans like always make mistakes, right? We all do. We all make mistakes. And none of us want to or like to accept our mistakes. Like, given the opportunity, we will always try to blame anything that happened wrong to someone else or something else, which we think, which we know is not the main reason, but we think that it is an easy scapegoat for us to put the blame on it instead of owing up it. So I think that initially, like even very old time, like when we were cavemen and shit, uh, humans initially should have created God at that period of time, but it not should be like real God. It should be like it's not the God like now. It's very nowadays it is very structured and institutionalized, but initially, of course, it has started very raw. So, like let's say this guy Bran, who did something wrong, like he but he doesn't want to accept that, and because everyone know that others is not responsible for that, so Bran doesn't have anyone to blame upon. So he has created some, like he put the blame on random tree, like that tree is in the fall, because of that this problem occurred. So that's how like these things should have started, or I believe it has started. So, and like just see, creating a god is very much easy for us humans, because even though we like to put uh, blame to other things, but there are some things which for which no one is responsible, like not I'm responsible, not you are responsible, no one is responsible, but we don't feel comfortable when no one is responsible, so we need someone to be responsible for that. So we created God. So if the hut got flooded, put the blame on waters. If the fire got too big, put the fault on fire itself. Uh, if the agriculture crop is not giving good harvest, put the blame on earth, the soil, and so on and so on. If there is suddenly a very uh, fast blow of wind, so put the blame on wind. So initially it should have started like that. And so now if anyone asks Bran what like who is responsible for this, so Bran can easily point out like, oh, it is the earth, it is this, it is that. But as slowly they when they uh, have kept on for generations and generations, keep bringing the earth, water, fire, and trees, and all these type of natural shapes, people like must have started to give these things a persona because humans like human faces apparently. I hope so, they like so. So they must have given it a persona, uh, like, oh, water is has did this, but water itself is also not responsible. There is a completely different entity who just like to play with water, who is able to control water. Like, if the water is able to do this many bad things, like, then it must have some powers, and there must be some random entity who is controlling it, like a god. So from that we must have created like natural gods, like those gods who are able to control a single type of element. So the that's how like Thor and all the Greek gods and these Zeus, or I don't know the name of the Greek mythology. So that's how these gods must have came into existence. And when they slowly kept going on and on for this, they must have realized that, like, initially the god should be a very negative personality. God should be an entity for which everyone is blaming for every wrong things that is happening. So everyone is, of course, initially blaming the God. So initially, God must be a very blame, like, scapegoat, a very negative thing. Like, God is an evil person or a bad guy who is doing all these mischievous things to us. And after some time, an Einstein should have born who would have thought, like, oh, if the God is able to do all these mischievous things to us, all these evil things to us, then that guy must be powerful, right? Otherwise, how is he able to do all these things? So people would have been like, yeah, maybe. So then, of course, they would have been like, they would have thought, like, okay, if this is something which is apparently able to manipulate water or fire or earth or air or lightning, so, and he's powerful as well in doing so, and he does this thing whenever he wants to, and just to create problems to us. So what can we do to save ourselves from this guy? So they must have tried various and various and various attempts, and uh, many attempts would have failed because they must have found no correlation between those attempts. Like, they would have never found any uh, any specific act or doing that seemed to have been reducing the fatalities that they are facing. So they must be like, uh, okay, so this guy doesn't give a damn shit about us. Like, what can we even do now? And by some chance, some rituals might have created a correlation, like the sacrificial rituals, where a tribe must have seemed to found that when we push a guy to the volcano, the earth god becomes happy and he gives us very good for harvest and food to eat. So it must have happened just by chance, like doing random trial and error and experiments, and they would be like, yeah, this must be case, so of course we can do that. So we must have did that, and then boom, there is a completely new ritual to follow, and God has become even more and more real. So what I basically want to say is that I personally don't believe that God as a thing exists. I personally think that it is just centuries of humans' creation. Like, we spent, I don't know how many generations, I don't know how many millennia, trying to reinforce this ideology. And let's be honest, if we are reinforcing a specific ideology after generations, at some point it does become very real, because this ideology has existed longer than anyone you know, longer than anyone I know, and longer than many people. It is like, if nothing, it is older than pyramid, right? And pyramid is very real. So there must be coming some thoughts like, if something this much old can exist till now worldwide, so it must have some grounds to it, right? And even to no one know that this thing is real or not, we all are simply believing that this thing is real. So after so after discovering rituals and following uh, several other kind of rituals, people might have found that doing this and this and this and that makes this thing work. But of course, where humans exist, there also exists power dynamics. So people need to secure power. And if a certain group of people, let's say a group of 100 people, believe that there exists a god, and he likes to do less fatalities to us if we praise him in a specific manner, then of course there must be at least one person in that group of 100 people who is willing to bet more, who is willing to go even further, who is looking to this god as a medium of opportunity to become the leader of this group, this tribe, right? So he will go even one step further, and he will like uh, start doing more and more thing which he believes is correct way to interact and please this god. And suddenly religion has become competitive. Till now, well, till now it was just a casual worshipping of god with no sense or ideology behind it. But now people are seeing god as a medium to create authority, as a medium to gain power. So more and more people are like doing this random thing, trying to please the god who actually doesn't even exist. It was just a scapegoat. But now, since many generations have passed by, people don't know that it was just a scapegoat. So people believe that it is something real, and they are trying to please it down. And in a sense, it doesn't like reward at all. Like, it would be completely random. Like, if 100 people are trying to worship the god to become the king, and out of those 100 men, if even one person succeeds, then of course we will give that the credit of that person's success to the god, uh, even though there are 99 other people who did not succeeded, right? But and let's be real, the it was almost guaranteed that at least any one of them will succeed. It was just not clear who will succeed, right? So when any one guy got selected completely on random basis, was able to create some authority and power, people were like, okay, so pleasing god in this specific manner has worked for them, and there is a possibility to gain authority and power by pleasing the god. And since the gain of one person was much more important than the loss of the 99 others, So people were like, oh, it's not random. It's just that these 99 people were worshipping wrong way. They were worshipping like fool. They don't know how to worship the god. This guy knew how to worship god, and that's why he was able to become king. So, and of course, this guy who did become king, he would also believe that god does exist. So he will be like very secretive about his methodology, like how he did that and how was he able to please the god to make him king. And he will be like tell this methodology like only to very few people who he trusts, and suddenly this methodology gets spread out everywhere, and everyone like, okay, so if I did this and this and this, I will become a king. But again, hundred of people are doing those things, but again only one of them is becoming real king. So people were like, so now at this point, again, people are not thinking that maybe the methodology was wrong. No, people are not thinking that. People were thinking that the application of that methodology was not correctly done by other 99 people, and there was this only one single person who was accurately able to apply the methodology to please the god. So now again, what he did will become the next base, and then the chain will keep continuing and continuing and go on and go on and go on. So now you see, authority, and there becomes a completely direct relationship between leadership and religion. And just like we have heard in Game of Thrones that the crown and the fate are two pillars of governance. So now this is the point when these pillars became the pillars. Right. Before that they were completely two independent mechanics, and they didn't matter at all. But now people have established a correlationship between the fate and the crown, and people actually believe that both have work for each other. So now the god is even much more institutionalized, because it is, and it will become even more competitive now, because now more and more people know that there is some way to gain authority, and that way cannot be achieved by moral competence, so they must have to rely on some supernatural force. And suddenly, God, which was initially a scapegoat, God, which was a negative figure, has suddenly become a completely merciful thing, something which has compassion, which has uh, kindness, and which is able to not only reduce the fatalities that will be caused to you, but is also able to grant you some blessings. So so you see, what I believe, that curse came first, then came the blessing. People initially thought that god is a ruthless personality who is only cursing us, and slowly they realized that god is not as much ruthless as we were thinking, but instead he is kind and he can give us blessings. So so suddenly a completely new PR has been formed around the god, that he is very good. And now that people know that earlier when people used to think of god as a monster, then the god become very angry and he punishes us. So just to keep us safe from those punishments, we made it completely forbidden to blame the god. for all the bad consequences that are happening to us. And suddenly, any we are the god is no longer a scapegoat, but a treasure chest, which is meant to be discovered, which is meant to be found, which is meant to reward you after the discovery. And all the humans became pirates. They are basically roaming delusionally in the sea, trying to chase a random treasure map on a random place which they have no idea about, but they will keep looking and looking and looking, and hooray, by chance they will find some treasure chest somewhere. But it will not be because there is a god, it will be because it was random, completely random, like it was bound to happen. Someone would have found it sooner or later. So that's how I believe that God initially was created, and how fate was created, and how religion came into existence. And now that the king knows the power of God, he will make it compulsory for everyone to follow the God, and he will pressure everyone to follow the god. And slowly and slowly and slowly, after generations of pressuring, uh, the general public will also start believing in the god, if they were not believing earlier before. So now complete tribe is believing in the god. And after some time, there must be like another genius who would have studied the god even more deeply, and he would have realized that it's all bullshit. The god doesn't actually exist. God is like, there is no sound reasoning behind its existence. Like, even if it is existing, it should not be existing. So he was like, hey guys, this is like wrong, right? God doesn't exist. But if he had said that out in public, then of course he would be punished by the king, because he was apparently opposing the supernatural entity, and apparently insulting the entity itself. So, as the prime follower of the god, it was the king's duty to punish the non-believer. So he would punish them, and this guy, if he is smart, he will know that he will get punishment. If he is stupid, then we can do nothing about it. He will just go and die. But he was like, okay, the god is not real, and I cannot do anything about it. Like, even if I go to tell anyone, no one will believe me. And even if someone did believe me, sooner or later when king finds out, he will just kill me. So what can I do? Well, I can leverage this fate, right? To gain power myself. I don't need to follow any rituals. I don't need to worship someone. I just need to play the game. I just need to play those peoples who do follow the god, who do follow those rituals. So he will go on like write a random book on the god, like anything, any manuscript or something which be like, which somehow favors him in a direct or indirect way. So, and when he will write it, he will praise the god a lot and a lot and a lot. And then he will write some random rules which will favor him more than anyone else. Firstly, because uh, he created it himself, and secondly, because others don't know he created it. So, so now the religion becomes even much more institutionalized, because now we have a completely bogus random book which doesn't have any real meaning to it, but was simply created to, support the author's claim to the power that he was seeking. And they will be like, okay, you all who, everyone who is believing in God, you all are correct, and the God has guided me to do this thing and do that thing and do this and that. And I believe and I assure you that if we do it correctly and if you have faith in me, then the God will reward you well. And after doing that, people must have found some benefits, because of course those events must be designed by the author in such a way that it gives a short-term benefit to the followers, so that they get a little assurance and belief in the author. And after the belief is established, the author will proclaim himself as the uh, guide sent by the God, and an angel or anything like that. So here you go. Religion is even more solidified now, and the people are even more big follower of the God. But now the sole benefit of following the God is not towards the king, but is towards this author. And now the religion is even more institutionalized, because this author has established himself in a way, in a better position than the king himself, because he is a kingmaker now. He can of course make himself the king, but he will realize that he doesn't need to make himself the king. Why? Because king will have to face responsibilities. I do not have to face responsibilities. If I made someone else a king, I can use him as a scapegoat while still benefiting and taking every advantage that a king gets. So now this happens, and religion is completely institutionalized, and we are now in the natural, okay, and we are now in the current stage way of religion and the God. And I believe that that's how religions evolved. And of course, after one such religion has evolved, some other intelligent guy would have came, who would have thought that okay, this is good, and this does make sense. Like it, the sense is not that the God is real. The is that the benefit to the author is very real. So he will be like, okay, now what all this saying in this book, all the text of this manuscript doesn't benefit me personally at all. It benefits a random guy. So he'll be like, okay, I will write a completely new book, and I will write completely different things in that, and I will make myself the author now. So now two different branches of religion has came into existence. So by going this, many and many and many religions came into existence, and after that, what has happened is pretty much recorded in the known history. So that's what we did, and that's how God came into existence. But all of these things that did happen, as I believe, doesn't really make God a real entity. God is still an artificial creation of humans. Humans like to believe that the God has created us, but if you think it very logically, you will find that it is us who has created the God. And if it was not for us, the God wouldn't have existed at all, right? Because in the end, it is benefiting humans only to create such entity. But let's think for a moment that even if God did existed, still everything that is happening in this world, either it is the best thing that you can imagine or the worst thing that you can imagine, all of this is happening because of God, right? Because he is this supernatural entity who is omnipresent and is able to control every single little thing. So if this God is able to do all these things, then it also means that this God is able to not do any bad thing, like, right? And can do only those things which are good for us, right? But he is not doing this at all. Why? Well, one thing that can explain it is whatever we are perceiving as good and bad is our personal perception. What is and good and bad in reality doesn't hold much value, because what is good for me might not be good for another human. So there is no absolute good and there is no absolute bad. Good and bad is a relative thing, and this will take another video and I will talk about that in a later video. So what I personally believe is, if the God actually existed and he decided to keep the world the way it is, then it is because he doesn't feel any difference between good and bad thing. For him, every single activity is indifferent. Whatever we are doing, it doesn't matter to him, because in the grand scheme of things, we are very tiny creatures who are doing some very tiny actions which should not make any dictation in the way of God, right? So what I am doing right now doesn't really matter at all. And this is and that's why God becomes even much more hypocritical for me, because if whatever we are doing doesn't matter at all in the grand scheme of things, and whatever we are doing is indifferent for gods, then it doesn't make sense to follow any specific rituals, right? Because whatever ritual we are following, uh, it is same as not following that ritual. Because let's say we are following a ritual X, and let's say we are not following this ritual X, we are following another ritual Y, and let's say there is another person who doesn't follow any ritual, who is just uh, he is just on his own and does whatever to keep him alive. So he is following an activity Z. So in the eyes of God, activity X, activity Y, and activity Z, all three are same, right? None of them are different from each other. So whatever we make us believe that this specific set of order of things makes God happy is wrong. Because if you think, happy and angry and sad are human emotions, and if this entire universe is created by the God, right? So then every single planet should be same for him. And if in one out of many billions and trillions of the planets that exist in the world, if one of those planet, uh, a specific life form manages to create emotions, then all those emotions should be indifferent to the gods, because happiness is as much of a emotion created by God as much as is angriness, right? So for the God, it doesn't matter if you are happy or you are angry. For him, both are just same thing you are experiencing. So that's what I believe. So I will wrap it up now, and I will talk later. Bye bye.